Hey TCS TV viewers, it's Evelyn coming to you live from the camera store. Now, thank you so much for tuning in live tonight. We have Getting into Real Estate Photography, the life of a real estate photographer, Rob Moroto. Now, there's a bunch of work happening behind the scenes to make all of this happen, and hopefully everything goes on without a hitch. And that's because of our TCS TV live dream team. Today we have Jeff and Drew working behind the scenes. Thanks so much to them. And of course, what I love most about going live is being able to interact with all of you. And so we do encourage you to comment, ask questions, put them all in the chat, and we are going to be doing a Q&A at the end. So just keep them coming all throughout, and then I'll be sure to ask Rob all of your burning questions. And if you are not logged into YouTube, you still want to participate, my email is also open for questions, evelyn@thecamerastore.com. So you can shoot me those there as well. And if you don't know our guest already, Rob Moroto transitioned from being a sales and marketing manager for real estate developers to becoming a real estate photographer in 2009. Using various techniques and a lot of trial and error, Rob created a workflow that was simple, replicable, and teachable. And so this was the start of his real estate photography journey and the creation of Calgary Photos, one of Calgary's leading real estate photography companies, which today revenues over 7 figures yearly and employs over a dozen amazing creatives. He has such a great team. Now, Rob lives in Vancouver Island and photographs resorts, show homes, all the cool stuff, luxury builds throughout Canada. And I would love to introduce Rob as he's going to talk about his journey, how he's gotten to where he is. And then he also has a special offer for you guys just for the camera store. And so if you're watching tonight, we will be chatting about that soon. So welcome, Rob. Thanks so much for joining us here on TCS TV Live.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. It's amazing. And, again, thanks to everyone in the background there. I know I can't see you, but I know that you're there and making everything sound great. So thank you. But yeah, this is gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Now, before we get into it, I just wanted to let the people that are like the early birds that have come in, let them know about the offer that you have, because of course we're going to be giving them kind of a primer about what you do, what your style is all about. But if they want to learn more about how they can do what you do, what are you offering them tonight?
Yes. So, I've been doing real estate photography since 2009. Now I've got a course out teaching pretty much everything about how I do, everything I do and the business side and, how to get to where I am as well. And that's available at www.robmoroto.com. And then you can use the coupon code, TCS30, and you'll get 30% off the course there.
Nice. I just popped that into the chat, so you can check out his link in the chat and then that offer code. But why don't we get right into it, Rob? And then just a reminder to everyone that we will do the Q&A at the end, but you can ask questions all throughout, and then I'll be gathering them and then asking for them later.
Awesome. All right. Well, and thank you, Evelyn. I think that is going to be perfect. Let me just switch on my presentation here. And well, like I said, my name is Rob Moroto, and I'm a real estate photographer. And let me give you a little bit of history of, my background. Okay. So right now, I was born in 1976 and until now. So, for those of you who are doing the math right now, I'm 47 and still trying to keep young.
Really?
Yeah, I know, right? I am. I'm getting there. Yeah. And so early years, I was raised in Banff and went to the high school there, did a little bit of film photography. We had a dark room, but we didn't really have much budget for a lot of extra photography. So we got our allotment of film and it wasn't much. So I didn't get really into it then. And then in 94, I went to University of Calgary and did a little bit of got my undergrad in psychology. And it was interesting. Psychology is actually one of the things that you will need in this industry. And part of it is because you are dealing with a lot of people. And I'll get more into that people part later on, but just keep that in mind. We're working with people here. So the psychology worked out really well for me. Serving, I did work at a restaurant for a number of years as a server, as a dining room manager. And then in 2002, I got out of all that and said, I'm going to get a real job. And I went into sales and marketing for a real estate developer. And I did that for around 7 years and ended my career as a marketing director for one of the local developers in Calgary. And we did a whole bunch of high-rise buildings. And essentially in 2009, something happened in 2009 and the market kind of crashed and I sort of found myself out of a job. And so when I got out of there, I took my severance check and I don't know, I was trying to figure out what to do, but I got a call right around that time from a photographer named John Sharp. And he was one of the photographers that I actually hired on while I was doing sales and marketing. And I had him shoot a lot of our show homes for us because, when back then we would take one show home, take a couple of photos, and those would be the only photos that we have to use for ads and to essentially sell, 160 or 190 units within a building. So it was really important for us to get really good photography. And John and I worked out really well because he loved doing this stuff. And I always just wanted to get out of the office and, play with cameras and stuff. So we'd always be on the shoots together. And I always talk to him about, okay, well, I need this shot like this because I need, this is the ad that it's going to go into. This is how it's going to be broken down. This is where I need a little bit of white space so I could put all the text, and there's a thing called crop and bleed and all this other stuff. So we got a pretty good relationship there. But when my career ended and I didn't know what to do, John said to me, he said, you know what, come with me. There's a party, and it's a launch party for the 5D Mark II and the 7D. And so I decided to, sure, let's try this. And I took my severance check, went to the party, found the camera, bought the camera. And then, after that, I just went home and told my wife that, I'm thinking that I might try my hand at photography. And my wife looked at me and said, well, you just lost your job and we still have a mortgage and you bought a camera. You better make this work. And so, strangely enough, the next day, within the next couple of days, my next door neighbor came up to me and said, Rob, we heard that you're in hot water with your wife because you went out and bought a fancy new camera with your severance check, and you guys have no idea how you're going to pay for the next mortgage payment. And I thought, well, that's about right. Yeah. And she said, okay, well, we're selling our house. So how about you get that fancy camera and take some photos of our house so that, and, try it out there. I thought, okay, let's try this. And so long story short, I called up John. He gave me a few pointers. We went in, shot the place, gave the photos to the realtor. Realtor liked it. And that was pretty much the start of my career. Got that one client. That client then referred me to another client. Those clients referred me to more. And things just started to roll. And this is in 2009. So back in 2009, one of the interesting things is that it was just in that stage when digital photography going on to MLS was becoming a thing. They were still doing photos where I remember realtors were going in with their point and click film cameras, taking it to Costco, getting the film developed and scanned, and then putting it up onto MLS. Okay, so that's kind of the age that we're talking about here. So for me to go in and start doing this digitally, it worked out well because there weren't a lot of real estate photographers then, and not a lot of people were using it. So it was the harder sell for us was not why you should choose us, but why you should choose a digital photographer. And so that was my start into it, and we start to grow. So now I gotta say, it sounds like it was just a go out there and find one person and then the rest is history, right? But it's not. It's a lot more than that. And it's like riding a bike. You fall, you hurt yourself, you break your bike, and you get up and you do it again and again and again and again and again. And so one of the things that was really important for me was to try and figure out how to do all this and how to get through it all. And I had no clue what I was doing. And so in the beginning, I started to think, all right, maybe real estate photography is about, well, it's about selling the house. So coming from the marketing background, I thought all you need are like some really cool images to get people's attention. Then you can get them through the door and then you can sell to them, just like we did when we had our sales centers for the condos. Now, the problem was that I would try and take shots like this. And you can see that, yeah, they're cool shots, but this shot here was taken from me lying on my back at the bottom of a stairwell. Well, no one's actually going to look at that from that angle, and no one's going to even see that. And so even though it looks cool, it wasn't right for real estate. And neither was this dark hallway shot. It looked cool, but it didn't do well. And so what I started to get a lot of my realtors telling me that the real estate photography, what they need is different than what I wanted to give them. So I wanted to make these really cool photos, but it wasn't what the realtors wanted. And thankfully, the realtors that I had at the very beginning, I talk with them all the time. We'd go out for lunch, we'd go for coffees. We would the realtors would show up at the shoots, and we would just hang out and talk and talk and talk. And they're still, I've got a bunch of them that are still really, really good friends, and we still talk all the time. And it's those realtors that really help me develop my business, because they help me understand real estate photography and how real estate photography is different from, say, architectural photography or interior design photography, because the needs are different. And so one of the things that you have to think about is, what is the goal of real estate photography? The goal of the real estate photography is to sell the real estate. Now, selling real estate is a little bit different from selling other, selling a show home or something like that, because even though it's kind of the same, a lot of the people who are looking at it are looking on their phones and they're flipping through all the photos very quickly. And they're looking through hundreds of products or hundreds of homes all the time. So it's very much like when people are scrolling through, say, like Amazon, looking at different things that are available for sale. Or just even on the internet, like, hey, I want to buy new shoes. Okay, what do you see? You see hundreds of different shoes that come up. And with real estate, we want to be able to take the house and make it more like an object. And so, if you think about, say, a product like a pair of sneakers, if you go into a lot of sneaker websites, you'll see they have a sneaker and then they can turn the sneaker around in 3D. Well, that's kind of what the realtors started to need. They need to be able to go in and look at the photos and flip through the photos in such a way that you can see the entire rooms the same way and rotate it and see everything. And mind you, this is well before we had 360 cameras. This is well before we were doing virtual tours and well before real estate videos were a popular thing. So we had to find a way to show each room consistently in consistent angles and then put it in such a way that it almost felt like you were rotating an object where you're going through the photos and you could see all the way around. So having that consistent feel going through each of the places became important, right? And as well, the consistency in the style, the lighting, everything about the photos had to be consistent as well, because what we found is that because you're flipping through it so quickly, we didn't want people to get lost or snag and say, oh, why is this picture like this? Oh, why is this picture like this? We wanted them to be able to flip through really quickly and be able to go through an entire house and get a good feel for the house and fall in love with it all at the same time. So that consistency was incredibly important. The next is that we found out was packaging. How do you package those photos? So unlike when I was hiring John to do my photos for my show homes, it wasn't just 5 photos that I needed. We need like 20, 30, 40, 50 photos, right? And what's included in that? So if you have a 5,000 square foot house, but you have a 25 image package, what images are in there? We had to really think about that so that we can then create consistent packages that we could always deliver as well. And once we figured that out, and we figured out things like how do you what order do you put the photos in, and how many of each room do you put in? Because, well, obviously, if you have a huge house and you put in 1 picture of a kitchen, but then you put in 5 pictures of a bathroom, that doesn't quite work, right? So figuring out that mix, figuring out that how to get the right number of photos for each room and deciding how to do that, that became a huge challenge. And it actually differentiated us. I remember we had a couple of realtors call us up afterwards. I'm like, you know what? You guys understand this. You know how to put a set of photos together, because that's what we are actually needing to provide. It's a set of photos, and that set has to be perfect, right? You can't. It's like pretty much anything. If you've got a set of collectibles, they all have to sort of match, right? You can't have one oddball in there or one that's a lower quality. And at the same time, you also can't have the very, very good quality, and then you have one exceptional one, because all of a sudden now that one exceptional one is going to make all the other ones look mediocre. So there is this consistency that has to happen, and you have to package it right so that it all looks really good. And then lastly, once we figured all this out, now we had to look at it and say, how do we make it so that we can do this consistently every single time and do it over and over and over again without fail? And that all came down to workflow. And it is optimizing that workflow, optimizing how you do every single piece. And so we've been working on that as well. And the whole reason for doing all of this is because we wanted to help create value for our clients, because I don't look at our clients like I've never looked at clients like a lot of businesses do, where they think of, okay, so let's get them through this funnel, and if they spend this much here, then they'll spend this much here, and then we can have them do none of that, because you can't look at people as a dollar figure. And so one of the things that I learned through my serving days, or um, my psychology degree, is that once you start valuing people for being people, then the rest will just work out. So, like even when I was working in the restaurants, if somebody comes in, I'm not, obviously, yes, you're thinking about the tips, but you don't want to serve somebody say, oh, you know what, you should get the most expensive thing on the menu because I know that 10% of the most expensive thing on the menu is going to lead to higher tips. No, you always want to look at them and say, okay, so what are you interested in? Let's see if I can get you the right meal for you and make it fit, and make sure that you have an enjoyable experience, right? And that's how you were able to create value as working in the restaurant industry. And the same kind of thing happens here, where you look at the realtors and you're essentially, you treat them like friends, and you say, well, how do I want to how would I want to be treated if I was them, or how would I treat them if they were my friends? So we really, really, really focus on that relationship. And once we get to that point where we've developed that relationship, then the rest becomes easy. I talk about understanding, and understanding is, so you understand what their needs are. And then by developing that relationship, you're always sharing. You're always sharing about obviously you're listening, and you're listening to what they need, but you're also sharing what you're doing and what your challenges are and what you're working with. And once you start doing that, you do develop this understanding with the realtors, where the realtors will start trusting you. And if you go into a place, like we've done this so many times, where we've walked into a house and it's an absolute disaster, absolutely. And we walk in, and I'll walk out, call the realtor, and say, you know what, this isn't going to work. This is going to look awful if I photograph it the way it is, and it's not going to sell. So how do you want me to work? How do you want me to handle this? And so we work together to find a strategy to be able to talk to the homeowners and say, hey, look, based on what this is and based on what your competition is, you're not going to have a very good chance of selling if we keep it like this. How about right now, I'll go through with you, recommend what can be put away, where you can put things, and then I'll come back and reshoot it. Okay. But let's make this right. And when we started doing that, all of a sudden we got the trust of the relationship of the realtors. Plus, we also got loyalty, and we got their trust. So they knew that we were reliable, and we could always count on them, and they could always count on us. And so that helped us grow, and that actually helped us grow a lot, because let's face it, if you have a friend who has a business and they're doing well and you like their product, guess what? You're going to refer that friend to everybody else you know. Okay. And you will go out of your way to use that friend. So if I had a friend that had a bakery and I like their bread, yeah, you know what? Even if I'm going to get groceries at Safeway or Save On or wherever, I would probably still take an extra trip to get my bread from my friend, right? And that's kind of the mentality that starts happening with us. And we started growing that way. And the first part of that growth was creating my company. Now, obviously, when I started out, it was just me. And it was just me, and I was just offering twilight photography at the time because for anyone out there that's tried real estate photography, you'll know that one of the hardest things to do when shooting a in the daytime is that you tend to have mixed lights. You have sunlight coming in through the windows at 5600 Kelvin. Then you've got your interior lights that are pretty much around 2600 Kelvin. Sometimes you have those incandescents, which are green. Then sometimes you have these older LEDs that are blue, and you get this whole whack of mixed colors. Now, when I was starting out, I didn't know how to fix that effectively and efficiently. So I only offered doing photography at twilight, because at twilight, you don't have to worry about the mixed lights coming because the only lights that you're working with is the interior tungsten lights. And so the windows turn nice and blue. You go in and you shoot like crazy for 20 minutes, 20 to 40 minutes, and get as many photos as you can. And that comes out looking great. And the realtors loved it because the colors were correct all the time. But the problem with that was, of course, I was only able to shoot one place a day. And so, obviously my realtor said, well, we can't keep on doing this because I have a lot of listings and you've only got 30 nights that you can work. So you got to figure out how to start doing daytime photos. And it took a while. It took a lot of tinkering, a lot of trial and error, a lot of falling off the bike, a lot of breaking the bike. But we finally figured out how to do it well, and to be able to repeat the process. And so as soon as I was able to do that, I was able to get that entire workflow put together, and then I could start replicating it. And once I knew how to replicate it, then I knew I could actually expand. And that's when, well, it makes it sound like it was all planned. It really wasn't. It was more like this. I figured out how to do it. I did it well. I got more business. I got busier. I was shooting 4 or 5 places a day to the point where I was completely exhausted. I didn't see my wife. I didn't see my kids. And finally, my mother came up to me one day and she said, "You're burning out." And I said, "Yes, absolutely. I'm burning out because I can't stop because I have to pay the mortgage. But more than that, my realtors need me. So I have to keep going." And then she said, "You know what? Remember that kid, Yuki?" And I said, Now, mind you, I grew up in Banff, and there was a very tight-knit Japanese community there. And Yuki just happened to be the kid that my mother donated all my Lego to when I got out of high school. And so I said, yes, I remember him. Am I going to get my Lego back? And she said, no. This is not about Lego. I thought, all right. I wish I got the Lego back, but I haven't. But she said, he's into photography right now. So why don't you call him up and see if he would like to help you out? And I thought, okay, well, sure, let's try it. And so I hired him on. And here's the thing. Hiring Yuki on in the very beginning was difficult because I didn't know how to train a person and I didn't know how to mentor a person properly. And so essentially we shot a couple of places together and I said, okay, you got it? Go. And I would call my realtors up and say, hey, you know what? I'm trying a new guy. Please, I'd love to send him to this property. Is it all right? And some of my realtors would be okay, or some of my realtors would say, well, this one is okay because this one will sell no problem, or this one's okay because it looks great. This one's okay, but we had that understanding where the realtors would say to me, no, not on this one. This one, it needs you, Rob. And I thought, okay, I'll be there. And yeah, the first couple of shoots that Yuki did, well, let's just say that he fell off the bike a lot more than I did, and he broke a few more bikes than I did, and it was tough. But then, after training him, he got to the point where he became really good, and to the point where I could leave him with a bunch of his own clients. And I remember talking to my realtors, my good realtor friends, and saying, thank you for letting Yuki shoot those first couple of places, because those were awful. And they said, yeah, you know what, Rob, it's okay. We understand. We wanted to help out, right? And it's to this day that those clients are still some of my favorite people in the world, because they did understand. They did know what was going on. They were there to help. And so they're also the ones that also send me things like, hey, got this email from your competitors, they're trying to poach us, but here's their price list, here's what these guys are doing now. And they give me all the info about what's going on, and it works out really well. They're still supporting me in numerous ways, but I digress. Okay, so I hired Yuki on so that A could take a little bit of the workload off of me, and it worked. It was in, I can't remember what year it was, but I remember our first Christmas party was just it was just Yuki and me there at a restaurant. It's like our first date. It was quite cute, and we said to each other that this has a lot of potential. We can actually grow this. We can actually expand, because we've got so much volume now, and more and more realtors are starting to use digital photos to put onto MLS. So let's really do a push. And we did. And we got 2 new photographers the next year. And because I went through the trials and tribulations of training Yuki, I now knew better how to train. And so we got Jose and Dylan the next year, and that was a little bit easier to train. And then got Kyle and Sophia, and then that became even easier to train. And we got Mike, and every successive person that we got, it became easier to train. And so what I realized was that once we figured that out, then, the training portion was easy. And because I've got this whole philosophy of, make the relationships with the real estate agents be such a big part of it, it didn't dawn on me that building those relationships with the other photographers was also a key component of it. Because once you have that culture of looking after people, then everyone works well with you, and they want to be there to support you, and it grows really nicely. And it just happened to work out that way. But I've always wanted to have a larger company for a couple of reasons. Number one, I wanted to be able to, expand our capabilities. Like we hired on Corey, who was he did house inspections and appraisals previously, but he's been doing appraisals for so many years that he's been measuring houses for a good amount of his career. And so he came on and he started doing measurements for us. So now we were able to offer photos and measurements. And then as he got busier with measurements, then we had to expand and add more people who could do measurements. And so we brought on more people. And when we were able to get everyone, good with just doing photos or just with measurements, then we started bringing in things like Matterport, because we could play with that. And 2020 was essentially the year that Matterport really took off for us, because something happened in the world where it just shut everyone in their own homes, and nobody could leave their home, but everyone was still wanting to buy homes because they were all online now, but they wanted to do it in such a way that was more interactive. So having Matterport and being able to do 3D tours was a great opportunity for us. And so we doubled down at the beginning of the pandemic, bought a whole bunch of extra Matterport gear, and just pretty much did a wholesale of Matterport services to our realtors, because they didn't know what was going to go on with the pandemic, and neither did we. So we thought, all right, if we can do, two jobs at every house instead of just one, then why not? And the realtors loved it because, here we are, we're trying to solve the problem of this whole lockdown for them. And it was a win-win situation and it worked out really well. So we were able to expand all of our offerings and uh, create more options. And so our team grew that way. We started adding more stuff on, like we started adding video and stuff. But the ultimate thing that it created when we started adding more people was security. And what I mean by security is not the type of security like, power and numbers or anything like that, but it kind of is actually. It's like this. When I was on my own and working, and I was at my limit as to the number of photos I could take, I'd have realtors call me and say, "Hey, Rob, I need you to photograph this place on Tuesday at 5 o'clock." And I said, "I can't. I'm sorry. I'm booked." The realtor's response was, "Sorry to hear that, Rob. I'll find somebody else." And they would leave and they would find somebody else. And as soon as they say that, I knew that I lost a client. And so by having a larger team, you can say, "Hey, you know what? I can't make it, but Yuki can definitely do that at that time." All right. So does that work for you? Great. It gave us the security of not having to say no to a client. It also gave us the opportunity to go on vacation. You won't believe how many clients we get every time one of the smaller real estate photography teams goes on vacation. We've actually got agreements with some of the smaller teams where we say, if you're going on vacation, that's fine. We will service our clients and we'll go do all the photography, but send it to you and you can send it to your clients and you can bill the clients. So it doesn't look like you've actually gone on vacation. It just looks like a different face just showed up, right? And we're supporting all of these other smaller teams doing that so they don't lose those clients. But at the same time, here we are, we've got these relationships with other photographers. And so now we're able to support them as well so that they don't lose their clients because they went on vacation and they don't have to hustle afterwards. And so it's kind of nice. We've been able to build that security for ourselves, but we're also trying to build that for other smaller photographers as well. So currently, here are the things that we're offering. Obviously, we're offering photography. We do daytime photography. We do twilight photography. We do videography. We do daytime and twilight videography, Matterport, iGuide, virtual staging. We do 3D renderings for some of our builders. And then obviously we do drone stuff as well. And I think these are the main things that most real estate photography companies are offering these days. And it is kind of by having all of these, you've pretty much got everything covered. I know that there are other places out there that do brochures and websites and stuff like that. And quite frankly, we haven't done that. One of the reasons is I've got a really good relationship with Jonathan at PTI Graphics in Calgary. And so whenever anyone asks us to do brochures, we say, no. We're photographers. We're not graphic designers, but here's a great graphic designer for you. And we refer Jonathan to all the realtors to Jonathan, and vice versa. Jonathan will be referring clients to us as well. And so we started getting this reciprocal relationship with some of the other vendors out there as well. And so I do this with cleaners, appraisers, mortgage brokers, and pretty much anyone else out there that we can meet up with. Because again, it's the relationships. And to give you an idea as to how invested I am in those relationships, let me just say that for advertising, my advertising budget currently is $150 a month on Facebook ads. And that's it, right? So you got to think, okay, so if you're revenuing seven figures, $150 a month doesn't seem like a lot of money to be spending. You should be spending a lot more, but we're not. We're working on the relationship side instead. Instead, what I've said is I've said to my staff, hey, if you're at a shoot and the realtor's there, um, why not ask them out to lunch afterwards? Why not go for a coffee afterwards? Just if you want, do that, expense it, and I'll pick up the tab, no problem, because that builds relationship. Same thing. It's like if you're on your way to a shoot and you want to grab a coffee, call the realtor, ask if they want a coffee, expense it. I don't care, because that $5 that they spend on a macchiato for a realtor is going to go a whole lot farther in terms of getting new clients and new referrals than spending $5 on Facebook would ever do. Right. So we keep on working on those relationships, and it works out well. And so if you're starting out on all this, obviously, it's going to be difficult to go out and offer all these products, right? So that's not a problem, because here's the thing. If you've got a good relationship with a realtor, the realtor will use you for photos. Just like if I have a friend that owns a bakery, right? I'm going to go grab my bread from them, but I'm not going to say to them, it's like, I can't come to you at your bakery because, I need lettuce, I need ham, and I need all this other stuff too. Like, why don't you have toilet paper here? Right? It'd be ridiculous for me to say that, right? But I want to go to them for their bakery. So just like that, you can actually start just by doing real estate photography. Let your realtors know that your clients know that you just do photography. They'll find people to do their videos. They'll find people to do their measurements, and they'll still use you because you're their bakery, right? If you have that relationship, and if you've built that relationship, and once you start building that, then it will grow, because good relationships will grow. Well, they'll just keep on growing, right? It's trust me on that one. And if you need a hand with anything, if you need somebody to be able to that you want to work with, and you want to do photography, but you need somebody who does measurements, well, send us contact me. We'll happily help out on that end. And no, we won't. I'll promise you, we won't go after your clients, right? It's a very simple thing that we can know to work together with people. And that's kind of where I'm at now with my life. And as Evelyn said, I'm currently living out in Vancouver Island. We moved out here around 8 years ago when my father-in-law needed some help due to health issues. So we essentially packed up the family and moved out to Qualicum Beach. It's a old retirement community out on Vancouver Island. It's just north of Nanaimo. And I've been pretty much working behind the scenes, talking to clients, supporting my staff the entire time. And I still go out and shoot. I still go out and do show homes and commercial work. So just 2 weeks ago, I was out I had to go to Kelowna to shoot 2 show homes there, then drove to Edmonton to shoot a bank branch, and then came down to Calgary, shot a show home, then went to Moraine Lake to shoot Moraine Lake Lodge, and then drove back to Vancouver Island. So that's kind of what my life is like now. And then, when I'm not out on the road shooting, I'm here processing and doing that kind of stuff. And it's pretty good. It's a good work-life balance in that sense. But at the same time, I'm also doing different things, like doing chats like this, and working on my YouTube channel. And oh my gosh, it's incredibly difficult to get to that threshold of 4,000 viewer hours before you become a affiliate or a partner. But I'm trying. I'm putting a lot of stuff out there. And aside from that, I have gone and started doing my course as well. And this course was kind of uh, I always had an idea about doing this, but essentially what happened was in 2020 when the lockdown happened, we started doing those virtual tours and we got busy. And then the market jumped and we got even busier and we needed staff. But here's the thing, we couldn't actually meet people in person and um and teach the way we were usually teaching. And so I had to find a way to teach those new staff. So I got on to Google Classroom and just started uh, talking and just creating as much content as I could, making all these videos on how to do everything. And I contradicted myself over and over and over again. And I just put it out there. And we trained a few staff that way, and it worked. And one of my staff members said, "Hey, Rob, these are really good. Why don't you just, put it online and sell the courses?" And I thought, huh, well, number one, I swear a whole lot in those original lessons. So probably not good. And not only that, in most of them, you'll see me with a beer can or a glass of whiskey in them. So, which also would explain the swearing. So it's probably not that professional. So I'll have to redo all of them. And in that effort to redo all of them, that's when I decided to make the course. And that's what's up now and is running. And it's been a good, pretty good response so far. So, that's kind of it. And aside from that, I'm a co-host for the Photo Focus podcast. That's twice a month. You can listen to me and Ron Pepper talk about photography and answer photography questions and do a roundtable and talk to all sorts of photographers about all the things that they know that we may know, we may not know, and have our minds blown for all these learning new things. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now, and it's an interesting place. So aside from that, if anyone has any questions, I'd love to start answering, and yeah,
Awesome.
go from
Thanks,
there.
Rob. Yeah, we do have some questions in the chat and a couple that some people sent me. So we'll
Mm-hmm.
start off with Eric Robinson, who sounds like he's actually taken the course or started the course. And he said, "Hi,
Oh,
Rob, love the
wonderful.
course. Why is it that in Photoshop, when I have my flash layer on top of my HDR blend as a color layer, I'm getting gray discolored patches?"
Gotcha. All right, Eric, that's a great question. Put it in in our school Discord, and let's go through that together. Send me your raws, and we can work through it together, and we can use that as a learning opportunity for everybody in the course.
Perfect.
Okay.
Brad McMillan asks, how many shoots are you and your company doing per year these days?
Oh, that's a good question. We average, obviously, it's cyclical, but we are around the highest. We haven't broken 500 appointments a month yet, so we're in that the mid to high 400s for our max, and then in December we're probably down to around 100 or maybe yeah 150 appointments. So we're probably around that. We always take a look at the number of new listings in Calgary and compare that to the number of homes that we've been in, and we tend to stick around the 5 to 7% market share range. So, you know, it's a big city,
It is a big
and
city.
we're a fairly big company, but we still only do 5 to 7%. So
Now,
there's a lot of room.
is it a good time for someone to get into real estate photography? Like, what are you seeing with listings? Have they increased, decreased? Like, what's going on from your perspective?
It's always fluctuating. It's holding fairly steady for the norm, I would say, right about now. But I think it's here's the thing. I think it's always good for anybody to get into their dream job. So if this is your passion, now is a great time to get in because let's face it, you're only getting older. And at the age of 47, I know that I don't have many years left before I have to, start collecting pensions and all that. There's not much time to actually get and start doing the things that you love. So get into it early. Get in and start doing things as soon as you can. And if this is what you want to do, by all means, like here's the thing. Okay, so my course is going for what around 349 US, which is just under $500 Canadian. That will essentially teach you everything that I learned in the first 4 years took me 4 years of struggling to learn. So that's not a lot when you consider that. And also think about it this way. Based on looking at our prices, I charge around $225 per shoot. So essentially, for the cost of doing 2 shoots, it's paid for, right? So it will speed up you getting to that point. And if this is your passion, jump in, get in, start doing it because there's no time like the present. And once you get good at it and once you love it, then you can keep on going with it, or maybe you find your next passion, right?
Good question here from Massour. How did you get the attention of a company that would hire me for real estate photography in Calgary? I would like to connect with more realtors. So what are you looking for when you are looking for like new hires and that kind of thing?
Okay, that's a good question. Number one, we tend to give everybody a chance. So here's a crazy thing. I have people applying for photography positions fairly regularly, and my response is, "Okay, great. You sound like you're interested. Do you have any experience?" Most people say no, and I say, "Okay, well that's fine. Take a look at our website. Take a look at how we shoot everything. Go onto our Instagram. Take a look at our photos. And now, I want 5 photos from you. I want a kitchen, living room, dining room, master bedroom, and a bathroom. Okay, 5 photos. They don't have to be perfect. All I'm looking for is composition. Okay, try and compose it the way that we compose it on our sites. And if you're close, if you're within that range, then we'll talk." And so that's step one. Step one is not actually the photos. It's actually sending me something. I've sent that requirement to a whole bunch of people, and I would say more than half of them don't actually send me 5 photos.
They get nervous or something.
Right? Like, "Oh, I'd love to be a photographer for your company." It's like, "Okay, great. Well, here it is. 75 photos." And then they don't follow up. So right there, that tells me that this person is not able to follow up or follow instruction or hit deadlines. So no, I'm not hiring them, right? Once I see the photos, I can tell pretty much right away whether or not this person is trainable, if they have the eye, if they can see what we see. And from there, I will tend to have a coffee or a lunch or a beer with them to see if they're personable enough and nice enough, and essentially a nice enough person that I would introduce you to my realtor friends, right? Because there are people who have applied, and when I started meeting up with them, I could just tell that they weren't nice people. Like, how you can have friends who you would you're friends with, but you would never ever introduce them to, say, your sister. Right? Those types of people. It's the same kind of thing. I will meet you if I think that you're a good enough person that I can introduce you to all my friends and all my realtors, then yes, it's pretty much a go from there. So yeah,
Okay.
and it's strange. I had one person ask me. They said, "Well, what do you do when you run into problems?" And I said, "Well, we deal with it." Like for example, I had one instance where um, my photographer went to a shoot. It was in winter, did a twilight shoot, got it all done, and then on his way home, he opened up the camera to take out the SD card. And if you know SD cards, they're spring loaded, right? And so he clicked it to pull out the card so they could start processing on the way home, and then it just flew out into the snow, and he couldn't find it.
Oh my
And he
gosh.
searched and searched and searched, but it's dark out, it's winter, it's slushy, it's wet. He couldn't find it. And so I called the realtor and I said, "Well, okay, you're not going to believe this. This is what happened. I'm sorry. Can we go back the next night to redo the shoot?" And here's what I like to ask. Here's my ask for you: is can you ask the homeowner where their favorite restaurant is, and can you and I will find a cleaner. And what we want to do is we want to take the homeowner out for dinner, and while they're out at dinner, we will go shoot their home. We'll send in our cleaners and clean the home beforehand. We will do all that. If you want, I will even send a stager in to restage the house so that we can go in, because this is not their fault, it's our fault, and we're going to do everything that we can to make it right.
Mm-hmm.
And we offer everything. And the realtor said, "Oh, that seems a little extreme, but let me call the client." And so she calls the client, and the client essentially says, "Oh, well, Rob, you don't have to do that. Mistakes happen. It's understandable. Thank you. We will go out for dinner, but you don't have to get a cleaner. You don't have to get a stager. That's great. Just come and get it done." And we did. And it's doing stuff like that where the relationship was maintained, the relationship between the realtor and the seller was maintained, and it all worked out. And so that was how we dealt with that on that side. But on the opposite side of the photographer, I remember I had a meeting with another photography, the owner of another photography firm, and they said, "Yeah, you gotta keep your staff in line. You gotta do this and that." And that. No, because quite frankly, this whole like 3 strikes you're out rule. Let's face it, everyone's gonna make mistakes. The longer you keep somebody, the more mistakes that they're gonna make, because we're all human, right? And so 3 strikes you're out. Eventually, everyone's gonna be out. We're not gonna have any home runs. So no, it's more about, I've always said it's more about not the mistakes that you make, but how you deal with it.
Absolutely.
Right? If all of a sudden that photographer said, "Well, you know what? I already did this. I'm not going back unless you pay me," then I would have had a problem. But the photographer said, "You know what? It's my fault. I feel so bad about this. Let me buy the dinner." I said, "No, don't worry about it. It's fine. We can expense that. Just you go and you shoot."
Yeah.
And it works out. And so that's a big part of what is important for me, for my company. Yeah.
We do have a few other questions, but I just wanted to, I guess, say that between the lines, like what I'm hearing is that real estate photography in general, if you want to get into it, like so much of it is like the customer service side of things. Like you really are providing a service, and obviously you want the photography to be really good quality, but you're dealing with something totally different than, say, like a portrait photographer, because it's something that ends up changing hands pretty quickly, like the whole process, right?
It does. And it's also, you have to understand that the relationship is a lot longer. You're going to be working with a realtor for the entire career of that realtor, right? It's not like a wedding where how many times do you repeat shoot the same person's wedding, right?
Maybe different weddings, maybe a couple weddings.
Right? It's always that joke, right? It's like, "Well, I screwed up your first wedding, but I'll give you 50% off on the next one," right? It doesn't work. So with real estate, you have to have that consistency, and the relationship is part of that consistency. And so, yeah, the relationship is super, super important. Yeah.
A couple questions here on real estate video. So, is that a service
Mhm.
that you offer? And then also a comment about flying drones in the city here in Calgary. How do you tackle that so you can offer that as a service?
Gotcha. Okay. So, video. Yes, we do video, and we have Jordan who does a lot of our higher end video. And then we also have a service where we call it simple video. And essentially, we shoot it with iPhones. And the reason for it was because when we talk to our clients, the biggest concern, biggest hurdle that they had with doing video was the cost. And my philosophy has always been I'm never going to discount something just to get the business. But here's how we do our pricing. I price everything based on a idea of $125 an hour. So at $125 an hour, if we go and shoot a place for 30 minutes and then we process it for 30 minutes and then we add in like 15 minutes for, say, drive time, then that is going to be, say, $165. And that's what we charge for 25 photos. So it's $125 an hour. Now, if I use the same $125 an hour calculation for video, obviously how tough video is, and editing, color grading, and everything. It's a nightmare. So when the iPhone 11 Pro came out and we saw the quality of the video that you could get out of that, we thought, could we shoot it on an iPhone, process it on an iPhone, and deliver it within a reasonable amount of time that we can cut that cost in half? And we did. And we figured it out. And because of that, now we're offering iPhone-based video for $225. And that means that we're shooting for around half an hour and then editing for around an hour. And we're able to offer that as well. So, and we're completely transparent with the realtors as to the fact that we're using these phones and the logic behind why we're using these phones. And once we explain it to them, because we have that relationship, they have no problem with it and they love it.
Excellent.
And
the
then,
drone
the
question.
second part, drones. Drones. Okay. So with the drones, yes, currently, well, up till now, it used to be a lot more difficult to get your permits to go and fly and your approvals for all that. Lately, it's gotten a lot easier, and especially now with the 249-gram drones, it's become a lot easier as well. And so for the most part, what we try and do is, because we're trying to cut down the amount of time, because the time is money, and that gets charged back to our clients, we are using the DJI Mini Pro 3.
Mm-hmm.
That's a,
Yeah.
Oh, they just came up with a 4, didn't they? Ah. Yeah. So, but that's what we use, and that's we make sure that all of our photographers are licensed, and we also make sure that they're all I've got blanket insurance for all of our drones and all of our flyers. So that's kind of how we go about that.
Yeah. Get the insurance, get the licensing, make sure you know what you're doing, basically.
Exactly.
And then a couple of gear questions. One, I had a question of what webcam are you using, because it looks awesome. Your setup is great.
Yeah. So for my webcam, I'm actually using a Fuji X-T4 with a 23 mm f2 lens. I've got a key light here, which is a Godox SL60. I've got my fill light over here, which is the same. And I've got two, Godox CL80s.
Nice.
Which
nice.
is the LED background light for podcasters.
It's fantastic. Yeah, and I'll give a shout out to our gear as well. We have the Sony FX3 with a 24 to 70 millimeter lens. I think it's looking pretty good. But yeah, they did a great job lighting as well in our book nook. And if you've never been to the camera store, we have the most epic book collection. You know, Rob. I think you've maybe perused it once or twice.
It's amazing. It actually tried to inspire me. I talked to the people at Trope to see if they would allow me to write a book, and they said, nope, not. real estate photography is not the genre that we want, but I thought about it. Uh, One day I'll be on that shelf, hopefully.
There we go. Yeah, and then last question here is what is your real estate go-to lenses? Like, what is your equipment list, and like, what do you require
Ah,
your photographers to have for their kits?
that's a good question. Okay, so uh, number one, the camera body that we use is a 5D Mark III or a 6D Mark II, and those are our go-to bodies. Main reason is because of the sensor size. It's a full frame sensor, but it is also I think they're 23 and 26 megapixels, so they're quite small on the file sizes. Whereas for me personally, I use a 5DSR, which is 50 megapixels, which is what I like to use for when I shoot Moraine Lake, right? But for real estate, we want the file sizes smaller so that we can process them quicker on our MacBooks, and we use 14-inch MacBook Pros with the M2 M1 Max or the M2 Max because they are amazingly fast machines. In terms of the lenses that we use, we have a 12 to 24 Sigma Art. I think that's an f4 lens. They have them at the camera store. And as well, we use the Kit 24105 for our zoom lens. For some of our builder stuff, we use a 16 to 35 and 16 to 35 f4, I should say. And then I have each of my photographers have a 100 to 300, just for those times when they go out and we're out in Bears Pond. They say, get a picture of the mountains over there through the window in the bathroom because that's an amazing mountain view. So we have that lens, but these are the old film lenses that they're the cheap $150 lenses that you find on eBay or somewhere else, because it's so rare that we get people asking for those that it's just like the we'll just have it just in case lens. And then yeah, that's pretty much the setup there. If you're going for one lens to do it all, the 16 to 35 will definitely do it. If you're starting out, you can also use the 17 to 40 Canon lens. That's a good one. I find that 40 is the 35 and the 40, that's good enough for shooting the exteriors, and the 16 is wide enough to do powder rooms. So it works. We like the 12 because when you get to go downtown and you have to shoot a 30-story building and in a landscape format, you need that 12 mil to be able to shoot up, get the entire building in. So
definitely. And I'll give a little plug for the camera store that if you don't have all the lenses that you need and you're starting to practice, you're starting to get into it, we do have a really great rental program. In fact, you can even try out lenses and cameras at no charge with our Try Before You Buy program. So if you go to the camera store website and you click on rentals, you can see our full catalog, and there's lots of great options that you can actually, rent for free and try it out and see if it's the right lens for you. You could even, do a shoot, see if it's going to work for you. So there's some affordable options.
exactly. And if you're getting that, then the other thing that you can also try is if you're okay, if you're young enough and you can pull off the I'm a student thing, you can always talk to some of the builders out there and say, hey, I'm a student and just trying out doing interior photography. Do you mind if I shoot your show home? And most of the builders out there would be more than happy to let you go in and practice there as well. So
Well, that's a great idea. And I mean, we're all students of photography, so
exactly.
work on
Exactly.
those relationships, right? Buy them a coffee, hey?
Exactly. Take the entire team coffee and donuts, and you never know, you might have a builder client soon.
Yeah, donuts can sometimes go really far. Couple last questions here. This one I thought was kind of funny, but Can you talk about any of like the weird houses you've shot in, or like what are some of the weirdest things you've come across?
Oh my God.
PG
Yeah,
friendly,
no,
maybe?
geez, there's so much. It's uh for anybody out there that I wish we could actually live stream some of our like Christmas events, because we do. We have whenever we have our group get-togethers, it's always everybody's coming in and it's like, oh my gosh, you will not believe what happened at this house, right? And we get them all the time. Like I had recently, we had one where uh, my staff called in and said, Rob, I need your help. I don't know how to handle this. I said, what? He goes, so the realtor gave me the code to the house and we got there, but the homeowner was there and so is his son. I said, okay, that's fine. What's the problem? He goes, well, the son is in the bedroom. I said, okay, that doesn't sound like a big issue. He goes, the son is asleep in the bedroom. Okay, can we wake him up? He goes, no, and the father doesn't want him to be woken up. Okay, but he says go ahead and shoot it anyway. So
Shoot around the sleeping kid.
I thought, okay, sure, that's fine. We'll take 2 shots and get out of there. And so we did. We took 2 shots of the kid's bedroom with the kid sleeping in the bed. And we sent it to the realtor, let them know what's happening. And then our response was, okay, we can virtually remove all the furniture and virtually stage it with new furniture. So we'll essentially Photoshop the kid and all his belongings out of there. So we've had that. We've had some scary ones. Like I remember I was given a code to go into a house and I was shooting it, and then the homeowner came home and with their dog. So imagine me being inside the house, homeowner's there, they open the door, dog comes running into the house, and there's a stranger, right? Not
Oh,
a
not
good
nice. Yeah.
situation to be in. And so, needless to say, I got attacked by a dog. His name was Chewy. He was a miniature Yorkie, and thankfully he was a miniature Yorkie, so it was okay. Uh, the realtor forgot to tell the homeowner that I was coming,
Mm.
so so after that one, well, the realtor bought me a beer after that one. So things like that do happen.
Yeah, totally.
Whenever there's pets, I always recommend to all my staff to just be on alert if you see like pet beds and stuff like that, and if you hear homeowners coming home, greet them at the door so
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
don't run into that. Other ones I've had. We've had cats that have we always have cats that are always in our photos. It's like this running joke about we'd be processing like there's a cat, there's a cat, there's a cat, there's a cat. We'll see it in our photos, but we've never actually seen them there. Um, we've had somewhere we've gone into a house in like spring, like April, May, and there's still a Christmas tree up. We've seen, oh geez, okay, you know how by now we should not have, there should be no bathrooms with carpet in it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just put this out there. There are still a lot of houses with carpet in the bathrooms, still from the 70s. It's still there.
Blech.
So, yeah,
That's a terrible
yeah.
situation.
And
Hopefully.
it's awful, but I keep on telling my staff, it's like you can't go into a place and say
Anything.
anything negative, because we've seen the nicest of houses
Hmm.
and we've seen the ugliest of houses.
Yeah,
But regardless of if it's nice or ugly, to our opinion, it's still somebody's home.
totally.
It's still
That human thing. Yeah.
somebody's home, and that's them. That's their safe place. And so we're never going to knock it. Always say something positive. Always be gracious when you're there.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure these days too, I mean, there's like cameras and stuff everywhere, so probably best
Oh
to
yeah.
not say
Yeah.
anything.
Oh my God. We had that once where we had the homeowner on the speaker. We'd be shooting, and then all of a sudden, from some speaker somewhere, like, make sure that you get a shot from here. It's like, what? And yeah, they were watching us and
Yeah.
giving us directions, and that was creepy, but yeah, and
Hey,
that
could have
happens.
been helpful. Okay, last
Yeah.
question from the chat here was about lenses. There's actually
Hmm.
two. So one, would a fisheye be a good option? Or they said, I'm guessing a fisheye is not a good choice. And then the other one
No.
is, do you use any tilt shift lenses? So both questions are kind of specialty lenses.
Ah, yes, they are both specialty lenses. Okay, so tilt shift lenses. Let me just start with the fisheye. No, we do not use the fisheye, and the reason for the fisheye is that even though it's nice and wide and you can capture an entire room, it makes the room look too wide. The thing with real estate photography is that um, you want to make the photo good enough that the potential buyer will walk into the house and go see the listing. You don't want it to be too good that when they go to the house, the homeowner's like, oh, it looks better in the photos, right? And you also don't want it bad where all of a sudden a person shows up and goes, oh my God, this house is so much nicer than in the photos, because that means that your photos are actually terrible. But the problem with the fisheye is that it will make a place look far too large. So you're going to run into this where people will come to a house and say, oh, it's smaller than it looks in the photos. So stay away from the fisheyes there. Get a proper zoom lens, and that'll work out better. Tilt shift, same issue. You are stuck with either a 17 or 24 mil lens for your tilt shift, and the problem with that is that 17 will be a little bit too wide for your bigger spaces like your living rooms, dining rooms, kitchens, but the 24 is a little too cropped in if you are shooting a smaller kitchen. So you really need that ability to hit the around the 20 mark, the 18 to 20 mark. And that's the disadvantage of having the tilt shifts. The uh, I bought a 17 mil Canon tilt shift, and I think what those are like $3,000,
Mm-hmm.
and I used it maybe 10 times, and that was it. Because by the time you realize that you need different lenses for different rooms, and you're switching out your lenses, you're getting dust into the sensor, and you're getting a whole lot of other uh, issues. And it was just too much of a hassle, and it took too much time. And so you're increasing the amount of time that you're on site. Therefore, you're going to have to charge more. Your clients don't like that. And it's better just to have a zoom lens. And with a 26 megapixel image, if you deliver it, like we deliver all of our images at 18 megapixels. And the reason for 18 megapixels is because at 18, you can print a 11 by 17 at 300 DPI, and that is what we would call a double page spread. So if you have a brochure and you open it up, like the centerfold, 18 megapixels will be able to get that. So if you've got a 26 megapixel sensor and you want to do it, you want to look up, zoom out a bit, and then crop it in, fix the verticals later, you're going to get the same kind of effect as using a tilt shift, except now you have a lot more versatility and you're not switching lenses. So I say no to the tilt shift just because it adds far too much more time
Mm-hmm.
to your shoot.
Awesome. Well, speaking of time, Rob, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I know you have, again, a special offer. People want to learn more from you if they like what they're hearing, if they want to hear more of your tips and tricks. Where can they get that, and what's the offer?
That's thank you. Yes, the course is available on my website at robmoroto.com, and the coupon code is TCS30, and that'll get you 30% off right now. And I think, yeah, that's the best deal that's out there. So take advantage of that and join up with me. And like I said, my whole thing is I am all about the relationship. We have a Discord. If you have questions, throw it on there. And I typically respond to that in emails quite quickly because I want everyone to succeed. I want people to get better. I want everyone out there to be happy doing whatever they love to do. And if real estate photography is what makes you happy, then I'm happy to help you get there.
Well, we want to also thank everyone for tuning in live tonight. If you enjoy the live content, make sure you hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell so you can get updated on when we are going live. We appreciate all of you. And if you have any follow-up comments, feel free to put them in the comments below the video as well. We like hearing what you have to say. But yeah, thanks again, Rob, for joining us tonight. We hope that you can join us soon.
Yes, definitely. Next time I'm in Calgary, I'll definitely drop by. Maybe we'll go for a coffee or a beer.
Sounds good. All right, TCS TV viewers, we'll catch you again very soon as well.